Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to continue Postal Volume 7. Let's start with Chapter 5. We have seen several other chapters before. Now we are moving on to Record Officers. When we say Record Officers, remember that Record Officers are intermediate between a Superintendent Office and a Mail Office. They are literally keeper of records. That's how we need to do. Remember, they are not going to handle the articles or the bags by themselves. They will be giving the directions to the mail officers and sections, and they will be receiving direction from the superintendent officers. They're literally maintainer of records. So, what is the authority of the record officer? How, like, what is the power? What is the authority of a record officer? A record officer, if he wants, he can order a particular sorting assistant or the sorting assistants to do overtime duty. Like they can transfer one sorting assistant from one set to another set. That also they can do. And they can also order a sorting assistant to attend an inquiry. Like if there are shortage of sorting assistants, sudden arrangement can also be made. But whatever they are doing, that has to be reported to their superior, who is superintendent. SRM needs to be aware of the authority exercised by the record officer. Next is supervision of work. So, record officer, he is responsible for general supervision of sorting assistants, and they can also warn, they can issue warnings. Disciplinary authority is vested with the superintendent, but they can issue warning based on the complaints. Like if they are receiving repeated complaints on a work or regarding the work of a particular sorting assistant, like the punctuality or the general work nature, like correctness, if required, a record officer can issue a warning. But again, that also has to be, it is an authority and that has to be reported to the superintendent of RMS, SRM. So general supervision, record officer can do. Record of 118 rule is like it is about record of orders regarding test card sorting and result of examination of portfolios. So when the test card are posted, if we are in sub officers, there is a possibility of coming across a test card posted from a mail office, from an RMS section, who will be testing out the efficiency of the system or the route. So this test cards these record officers can check this test card sorting also, as well as they can perform a examination of portfolios. Portfolios means they contain every important thing concerned to a set, like their order book, date stamps, stamps and seals, everything will be in the portfolio. Record officer can also examine these portfolios. We saw that sorting assistants, they can record officer can assign, like change the sorting assistant, change the set of the sorting assistant. So generally, whenever such things are done, their work is going to be changed. Distribution of work, or however it is, even if the number of sorting assistants is going to differ, whatever work they are going to perform is going to be recorded in MDW, which is Memorandum of Distribution of Work. Who will issue this Memorandum of Distribution of Work? It will be issued by the superintendent. Please keep in mind, MDW is issued by the SRM. It is maintained by the record officer, and based on which a HSA, who is below the record of, who is next to the record officer, he will be assigning the work. So MDW issued by the SRM is maintained by the record officer. Next one is arrangement register. What do you mean by arrangement register? Like which we saw that he is capable of changing the sorting assistant set. So who is working there, where? So those kind of arrangement is recorded in the arrangement register, and that is provided to the HSA, because ultimately the head of the set is going to be a HSA, and he has to be aware of the number of essays he has been assigned. So it will be furnished by the record officer to the HSA. Next rule number is 121. We already saw regarding metal tokens. It is like an ID card which is required to be carried by the people who are attending the railway stations, the changing stations. So whoever is holding those metal tokens, their particulars are recorded in nominal roll. This nominal roll is maintained at the record office. For how is it maintained? Like if there is a particular, there will be a particular number to the particular metal token. So one page will be assigned to the one particular number of metal token. So if the person goes on leave, the next person who is holding those metal token, that those particulars will be entered in that particular page. Okay. So that nominal role is maintained by the record officer. Remember that nominal role maintenance of records means it is done by the record officer only. Nominal role, arrangement register, stuff like this is going to be under the custody of record officer. And he will also be holding the stock. The stock will also be maintained at the record office. And if it is lost, the person who is losing the metal token, he has to bear the cost of replacement, which is rupees 1. And those particulars and all is recorded in this nominal roll and maintained by the record officer. So there will be metal tokens that are not issued, that are not given up for assigned to any particular person. So these ID cards like metal tokens, these metal tokens should be kept, that are not issued should be kept safely locked inside the safe. Next is 122, register of sorting list. What do you mean by register of sorting list? Like sorting list will differ from set to set also. So if it differs, this sorting list needs to be maintained for different kinds of set, and if it is changed, everything has to be recorded. So there will be a register, and for each sorting list, there is going to be a separate page assigned in this register. If the same list is going to be used by the next set or next set of people, that will also be noted. Then if these sorting lists are lost, again the person who is responsible for the loss of the sorting list, the cost will be borne by that particular person. The amount of the fee to be collected is just the same as metal token, which is rupees 1. Next is hours of attendance, which is rule number 123. We saw that attendance is very, very important when it comes to the mail offices and sections. So in record office also, these hours of maintenance, attendance is fixed by the superintendent. So naturally, they will be insisting on punctuality. So it is just like attendance register. What is the purpose of attendance register? Whoever is going to be present in that office, they are going to sign the attendance register in the presence of the record officer. If required by the MDW, then record officer has to attend the railway platform as per the prescriptions in the MDW. If an inspector of RMS, if an IRM is available, then the HOC, instead of directing the HOC means head of the circle, chief PMG, instead of directing the record officer to attend the railway platform, then that work can also be assigned to the inspector of RMS, which is IRM. Traveling of record officer. Generally, we see that record officer is just maintaining the record, so he is not going to travel anywhere. But if there is an emergency situation like the mailbags, interruption of mails occurs, they're receiving information. So we already know that whenever mails is getting interrupted, the interruption of mails information should be provided to the superintendent through the record officer. So after receiving the information, if the superintendent is directing the record officer to go and see the spot, then he is required to travel. Apart from that, he can also travel for the sake of attending camp mails and camp bags. But for that, CPMG orders are required. Okay. Camp mails and camp bags, generally the orders are from CPMG only. Next is, what is the work? What is the visa? His duty is responsible. Okay. Now, He has attended the office. So, what is the work that will be done by the record officer during this due date and during his work hours, attendant hours? First, we saw in the previous sections and all that a registered sorting assistant or a parcel sorting assistant has to attend the work papers, or the section has to the mail agent and the mail guards are required to attend the work papers. So, who will issue these work papers? It is the duty of the record officer to issue these work papers. So by the end of the day, the next duty is by the end of the day, if there are excess bags, then he has to collect and then it will be returned to record officer only. No, we saw that in previous sessions. So those empty bags he will be keeping custody, and if required, he has to also give out sufficient number of empty bags. So if there is any sorting, the change in the sorting list, that instruction also has to be given to the sorting assistant. Then if there is an LSG, if there is an and record officer also, if there is an LSG record officer, he will be writing directly to the postmaster and to the superintendent. So that is the power of an LO selection grade record officer. So LSG RO, he can write if it is brought to his notice that particular office, post office, is not preparing station windows properly and not closing bags properly. If there is any other irregularity that is being brought to the notice of an LSG or O, then he can write directly to the postmaster or any kind of other directions also. Whatever he has received, he has authority to communicate to the postmasters directly. So we are talking about work papers repeatedly. So what is the importance of these work papers and what is the importance of examining these work papers? So rule number 127 states that whenever you have issued a work paper, you should be very clear about the duties that has to be attended in that work paper. And when you're receiving back, you have to examine it carefully so that any kind of irregularity or if any work has not been done, everything has to be addressed immediately. That can be done only if you are examining the work paper properly. So, yes, sometimes if such a big irregularity is found in the work paper, disciplinary action can be initiated against the corresponding RSA or HSA or PSA or is responsible. And disciplinary action can be initiated based on the work paper that they have submitted, and the punishment, maximum punishment can be imposed, which is dismissal. So it's very important. Ultimately, the point emphasizes that it is very important to examine the work paper. So we are talking how important it is. So, okay, it is important and what needs to be examined. First is correction or overwriting, such kind of things and all should not be there. And whether parcel abstract has been tallied or not, that should be observed. And after verification of the document, that is the work paper, he has to sign the abstract that yes, it has been verified, it has been examined. So the correction or overwriting is there means it can also mean that they're trying to adjust the things, they're trying to change the figures, so which will literally lead to loss of articles or loss of bags. So it can mean several things. That is why there should not be any correction or overwriting in a work paper. So record officer should be keen on those stuff. Next is daily reports. What's daily report? Again, work paper is something that they have to do, the work that they do, they have to do. But daily report, what does the daily report contain? We saw in the general duties itself. Daily report contains irregularities. Whenever something is out of ordinary, then that has to be recorded in the daily report and it will be submitted by the HSA. HSA or the mail agent if it is a section. So the daily report, after receipt of the daily report, record officer is going to verify, and then based on that, record officer, he has his own daily report. If required, he has to make entries in his daily report and then forward the daily report received from HSA to the sorting assistant. We are talking about daily report of a record officer. What will be the irregularity that the record officer has to write in his daily report. Unimportant irregularities. If something major is there in the daily report of the HSA, then he has to make an observation of that. And if the work paper is not completed on time, based on that also, record officer can record in his daily report. If there are unimportant irregularities, so if they're not like major fault, but they're still not regular things. They are irregularities. Such kind of things, if record officer observes such things, then they can send the extract of the daily report and then send it to the concerned postmasters, or if required to the superintendents also. Next is issue of forms to set. So we are talking about mail list, we are talking about abstracts, such stuff, so which requires different kinds of forms. It involves different kinds of forms. We are talking MS 71, 82. We talked about several forms. So whatever forms is required by a HSC or mail guard, that will be supplied by the record officer. So we saw how an examination, how a work paper is to be examined. It is repeated in rule number 134. And in 135, we are talking about sweepings. Why is sweeping emphasized using a rule? Because sometimes if you're sorting an ordinary mail, or even in some cases even registered leave, they are thin mails, they may get lost, they may get trampled upon. So if for to avoid such things, sweeping is emphasized in this. So if it is a mail van, you have to sweep the mailman at the end of the day. Why? If there is a damage of, if there is a hole in the bags or kind stuff like that, there is a possibility of an article being that will come out of the bag and it may be left out in the van. So when you sweep under some, like if it is a mail office, as you sweep under the tables and stuff like that, there is a possibility of finding out articles, sometimes even stationaries. So it's important to sweep. That's why it is emphasized in rule number 135. 136 is delivery book. What do you mean by delivery book? What is done by the delivery book? Sometimes we know very well that articles are not going to be delivered. So what is going to be delivered through this delivery book? Sorting assistants may be doing such kind of irregularities, and superintendent will direct that particular sorting assistant has to provide explanation. So when a letter is received from the superintendent calling for the explanation of a particular sorting assistant, that letter is delivered to the sorting assistant after making entry in the delivery book and getting his acquittance. So delivery book means it contains a record regarding the explanation letters called by the superintendent from the ICS. It is delivered through the delivery book. The most important topic of volume 7 is B order and TB orders. There is also another order which is A order. Just know that whether it is A order, B order or TB order, whatever order it is always issued by the superintendent only. A orders, B orders and TB orders are always issued by the superintendent only. So what does A order contain? What does B order contain? And what does TB order contain? A order contains, like we saw that sorting list contains particulars of mails that has to be sorted and closed. So A order contains changes regarding the sorting list. So sorting list has been issued, but there are some changes to that sorting list. Then those changes, for the sake of the changes, the entire sorting list will not be revised. So those changes are issued as orders. Those orders are called as A orders. Who issues sorting list? Superintendent. So who has the power to order changes in the sorting list? Naturally, superintendent only. That is why A orders are issued by superintendent. Every other order that is not concerned with the changes of a sorting list is called as B order. Every order that is not concerned with the changes of a sorting list is called as B order. That is also issued by the superintendent. So now in this we are seeing about B order and TB order. So B order, a record officer is receiving a B order from the superintendent. As soon as receiving it, he is going to write it down in the guidance book. What is the guidance book? Contents of the B order is copied into the guidance book. And who is responsible for this guidance book? Record officer. Next is TB order. I already explained that high officers like DG or president, whenever they are touring, articles or bags addressed to them are called as camp articles or camp bags. They will not contain the details of a particular station. They may or they may not contain. Whenever they are touring, their tour particulars are circulated to the mail officers along the route. So that if they are receiving the camp bag addressed to, in case president, then they have to see the order and see, like in this date, on this particular date, on this particular place, on this particular date, the high officer is going to be in this particular station. So let's forward the bag to him, to that office, or if he is available, if directed, HSA will go in person and deliver the camp bag. So those order that is containing the route map and everything is called as TB order. So these orders are called tour orders. So they are separately filed in a GOT file. They are not copied. They are just filed as such in a GOT file. So whatever it is, A order, B order, TB order, after receiving those orders from the superintendent, record officer has to explain the meaning of the office orders to the concerned HSC or sorting assistant or mail guard. So after that, they have to get an acknowledgement from those people that they have understood the orders. That is, they have to get that sign. So now in a particular year, if they're receiving many B orders, there are going to be many TB orders. It should be given a consecutive order, consecutive number. Like based on the number, they're going to be in serial wise only. They have to be filed or they have to be written in the book. If some orders are temporary and they're cancelled by the superintendent, that also should be, the cancelled entry should be made on the order itself. In case record office is in one place, whereas mail office is in another place, we just saw that record officer has to explain stuff to HSA and SA, contents of the TB order. If the HSA or SAS are in mail office which is not located nearer to the record office, then what to do? We cannot be explaining to them, right? We cannot get acquittance for their understanding. So in those cases, just supply a copy to them. If the mail offices are not in the same place as record office, supply an additional copy of TB order to the mail office. But if it is a very big mail office, like literally we are calling about like head offices and stuff like that, right? So if there is a very big mail office, then Chief MG may also order that not just the record officer, HSA also maintain a separate GOT file. So in that case, separate GOT file should be maintained for TB orders by the mail officers also. So TB orders are going to differ for during visit of each high level officer. So for this, they have to maintain the index, and for that index, it should be in the automatically it will be in the GOT file only. God file only now we're going to paste the TB orders. So it should contain an index and it will be in a particular prescribed format. We saw that B orders are supposed to be copied in the guidance book. But sub-record officers have the same working offices, same working timings, and if mail officers are like, if it is in the same working hours are same, then they need not be copied into the guidance book. They can just be kept as per the filed as per the order of receipt. So this is the important topic. B order and TB order. A order is orders regarding changes in the sorting list. B order is every other order. TB order contains the two orders of higher officers. Every order is issued by the superintendent. B orders are going to be copied in the guidance book. TB orders are going to be maintained in the guard file. If the mail office is located in a big city, mail officers are also required to maintain separate guard file for TB order under the orders of Chief PMG. Next is filing of work papers. So every day they are going to receive work papers. How to file them? That is rule number 138. File them as monthly basis as two bundles. Why? What do you mean by two bundles? If it is a section, it is going to be an out trip and an in trip. So separate work papers for out trip, separate bundle for out trip, and separate bundle for in trip. Any paper we saw in general rules, no paper of a mail office or a section or a record office is allowed out of the office, and only for the case of investigation is it is allowed to do that. If for the sake of investigation a file bundle or some record paper is allowed to be carried out of the station, out of the office, then particulars, the instance of that, for a small note explaining the instance is to be recorded in the document. After receiving it, whichever bundle it belongs to, it has to be filed back to the exact same place. Okay, that's what is filing of work papers. Next is 139, preservation of bags and records for inquiry. For inquiry, like if there is an abstraction of contents. Abstraction means loss of contents or loss of bags or contents itself. So in that case, we should not destroy every record, any record concerned to that particular instance. If it is the case is like 20 years old, 25 years old, so or like it is a long time, or if it has the record has been damaged by some natural force, you have to destroy it. Then permission of the investigation officer is compulsorily required. That is insisted in rule number 139. This is periodical returns. Record officer is maintaining records. So naturally it is required for him to submit some statements or some records. So the periodicity, there is no other go. You have to remember that. Daily report, the name suggests daily stationary indent. 6 months once it has to be made. You cannot make like emergency indent is okay, but due indent is every half yearly once you have to do. Case labels, monthly. Articles of stock, further, whenever you need, you can raise the indent. Overtime allowance bill, once in 4 weeks, which is nothing but monthly. Extract from register of missed sums and disposed of, monthly. When you are studying this kind of records, remember which are all monthly. Case label indents, OTA bill, and sums received and dispatched abstract, monthly. Stationary indent is 6 months once. And articles of stock instant, as and when required. So we saw how a record officer examines the daily report submitted to him. So he has to submit his daily report to the superintendent of RMS. So what will he be submitting? So he has to send as per the periodicity we saw. He is going to naturally send daily to the superintendent. Who is his superior? Superintendent. So when he sends his daily report, naturally he has to accompany it with the daily report received from the supervisor of mail officers HSA, supervisors of the section mail guards or mail agents, who are all attached to his record office. Those things and the mail sorting assistants who are under his direct disposal, under his direct control. Those people's daily report, everything should be taken, and along with that, his daily report he has to submit to the superintendent. So, if irregularities are recorded, you also have to explain the situation why it had occurred, and you also have to get the explanation from the person who is responsible for the irregularity or who saw the irregularity. Explanations also should be given in written format to the superintendent. What are all the irregularities? We saw that there are some unimportant irregularities also. What are all the irregularities that should be compulsorily, mandatorily recorded in the daily report? Like absence of a SA, mail guard or van peon, that should be compulsorily reported. If on examination of work papers, he sees that the sorting assistant has prepared the work paper in such a careless manner, it is an important irregularity and it has to be noted in the daily report. We already saw in the previous rule, on the examination of the work paper, if he finds any irregularity, record officer will record in his daily report. So that has to be recorded in daily report. Other thing is, if he loses anything, whether it's a metal token, sorting list, article, or damage of an article, when it is concerned with loss, it has to be compulsorily recorded in daily report. So this is regarding the record officer's daily report. So we saw mandatory recording of irregularities. Apart from this, there are also other things that will be noted. If he has cash in hand, how much cash in hand is there? Like previously, disposal of pay and allowance was made. Accountant record officer also does the accountant work. So the disposal of pay and allowances was made through the rolls. So acquittance is to be received in the rolls, signed, and pay is to be given to the people. Physical cash will be given to them. Nowadays we are doing it in accounting, right? Those times, for the sake of pay and allowances, record officers will be having a particular cash in his hand. So that CB should be written. Apart from this, pay and allowances, cash is also required for other contingency. Contingency means wages, like outsourcing wages and stuff like that. If you're buying for emergency, advance of postage of stamp. So whatever cash is there in his hand, that closing balance should be written. Permanent advance that has been given out for the sake of buying postage, that will also be written there. If there is a joint custodian, then naturally he also has to sign it. If TB order, like a TB order is concerned regarding the tour of higher officer. After the tour is completed or if there is a sudden cancellation of the TB order, those particulars are also noted down in the guidance book. If train accommodation is required in extra to the normal one, that will also be recorded and applied in his daily report and send it to the superintendent. Naturally, the train accommodation will be given to the station masters only. If record officers is empowered, he will be addressing to the station master and report regarding this requisition will be sent to the superintendent and noted in the daily report. Why? Because it is something out of the ordinary. This is not something ordinary. Whatever is your ordinary requirement, beyond that you are requiring the train accommodation. So if you see generally, a record officer is doing the work of an accountant as well as that of the treasurer. Some duties of treasurer and accountant is part of the duties of record officer. Suppose record officers, we saw that they are reporting to a particular divisional head, which is who is the superintendent. That record office, to that record office, sections and mail offices are mapped. But there might be an anonymous section which is attached to the record office, but that RMS section is not belonging to the division to which the record office is reporting. So in that case, what will be done? So if the record officer is assessing the work of the section, whoever is the division head for that particular section, record officer is going to send the report to the concerned head of the division to which the section actually belongs. Okay. So in this, we are going to see simple thing throughout volume 7. Whenever you see the name daily report, anything out of ordinary is to be recorded in daily report. Daily report is prepared by HSA, submitted to the record officer, and record officer in turn will submit it to the superintendent through the record officer. So record officer cannot just forward it; he has to examine it, and the contents, if required, he has to record his own daily report along with the daily reports of HSA and sorting assistant. He will be forwarding his daily report. Now we saw that there might be some corrections in the sorting list. So if there are corrected copies of the sorting list, then that has to be submitted to the superintendent. Naturally, this is a very important duty of the record officer. Corrections also will be issued by the superintendent. After correcting it, corrected copies also should be submitted to the superintendent. That is, they have to show that they have corrected as per the direction of the superintendent. Okay. So, and it has to be reported to the superintendent. It is an important duty. 143 is disposal of superintendent communication. Being the intermediary officer between the superintendent and the HSC and the mail agents, mail officers and section, whatever is the communication that the superintendent is giving to the mail office, he has to convey it, and he also has to convey it to the sorting assistants who are attached directly to him who are attending the record office. So if there is any delay in communication of orders, then the performance of the record officer will be critically analyzed. Why? Because that is his basic duty. So if there is a delay, it means that there is a delay in disposal of his basic duty. So it will create a negative impression. 144 is regarding the register of complaints. Inward register of complaints. So if you're getting any complaints received, so that correction number is, the form number is CORR2. So it is recorded, and naturally this inward register of complaints is maintained at any kind of record office, whether it's normal record office, sub record office, or head record office. Whatever it is, it will be containing the particulars of public complaints, search bills, stuff like that. It will be entered in the inward register. Next is correspondence register, outward correspondence register. So whenever you're giving some information or correspondence to the other officers, you're writing a letter to the postmaster, you're writing a letter to the superintendent of the concerned postal division. So those kind of correspondence, whatever you're making, a register should be maintained for that sake. So head of the office will be verifying. He will be checking to whom all correspondence letters have been addressed by the record officer. That is outward correspondence register. Next is monthly account bundle. What do you mean by monthly account bundle? We saw that cash balance is maintained by the record officer. So naturally, whenever some stuff like that cash is involved, he is required to submit accounts. So this head record officer is going to submit a monthly, he's going to be submitting monthly account bundle on 5th of every month. In that, it will be containing monthly contingent bill. Along with that bill, concerned vouchers and the orders obtained for incurring the expenditure, everything will be recorded in that. Memorandum of distribution of salaries and everything has to be submitted to the superintendent after the salaries are distributed. Nowadays, we are not doing that. In acquittance rule concept and all are not there. So, as per the rules, even the concept of manual distribution of cash for salaries or contingency, acquittance, allowances are there. After making disposal of those amounts, you are going to do a memorandum, prepare a memorandum of distribution and submit to the SRM. Nowadays, it's done through. Now, what you have to do? You have to do credit it in their particular accounts. After crediting into their particular accounts, particulars of the credits, that is also disbursement. Those disbursement particulars are recorded in the memorandum and submitted to the superintendent. So, before submitting it, how correct is it? Without any errors, it should be prepared and submitted. So, this correctness should be ensured by the head record officer. After checking everything, superintendent will check everything and then it will be returned to the head record officer. Which one? The memorandum of distribution. So for record, for this sake, a special stamp is impressed, saying that it has been submitted and checked. So monthly account bundle submitted by the head record officer on 5th of every month. Okay. That is what you have to remember in this. Next is filing of acquittance rolls and other documents. How will you file? Whenever you are filing the acquittance rolls, you have to file it as per the serial number. Even though the salaries and contingent bills are generated, if physical cash is not involved, rolls and memorandums are still present, which means they contain particulars of disposal. So these acquittance rolls and all will be filed as per the serials. They will be kept in loose bundles, and after the completion of the year, they are going to be bounded as a book. So whenever such kind of large volume of memorandum or even if it is small, whatever it is, binding work is involved, it's going to incur some cost. So the cost incurred for the binding will be sanctioned by the superintendent and it will be under the responsibility of the head record officer. So he is responsible for binding the rolls yearly after obtaining the sanction from the superintendent. We are talking about computerization everywhere. Visa CTMO, Visa CRC, Visa AMPC. What about HRO's computerization? Yes. If there is a head record office after computerization, naturally, system admin will be the head record officer. So now the data that is flowing from the mail office to the HRO, the approval will be given by the superintendent naturally. So this is recording the record officers. In the next session, we will see the next session will be the final session and we will see the remaining chapters of volume 7. Thank you.